preparing for the continued edition of the Civil War games is always exciting. It always is. It would be nice if we were having a little bit better of a season and had more at stake here. But that's the great thing about rivalry games, that you always have something at stake, bragging rights, and we're still trying to measure ourselves against teams at the top of the conference. So I'm excited for it. The guys are excited, we've got a lot on our plate. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Looks like Artis is going to get at least a couple, some playing time this week. I mean, can you compare how they look on film without him?
Well, they played better when he was in there, and he was, such a dynamic player as a freshman, and when he wasn't in there, it seemed like it didn't. I was only watching games kind of from afar, but it seemed like they were a different team without him. But no, not to disparage Lloyd. I think Lloyd has done a very capable job. I just think that Dominic is taller. He's a little better outside shooter, so that helps them both offensively and defensively, the height factor there. And they just had they had been playing a long time with him in the lineup and kind of had to get used to having another guy in there. It's kind of similar to what we've had to deal with. So it sounds like he's going to get some time. I don't know how much time. I think they're probably trying to get him warmed up or prepared for the conference tournament. But it's not surprising that he would be playing in this game.
What do you see in Oregon developmentally wise, or how they developed as a team since the first time you faced them?
Since the first time this year, when you have that lineup, other than Artis, has been pretty set. When you have three seniors like they have, and one of them is E.J. Singler, that's a nice foundation to build upon. And it allows your young players like Damian Dotson and a Dominic Artis to be able to sort of get their legs under them by the time the conference season starts. And, Dotson's just gotten better, and Artis was getting better until he got hurt. So, I think having three seniors in that starting lineup helps. And Kissimmee just seems like he's just been playing better and better, and it looks like they don't even run stuff for him. He just gets his stuff off of steals and rebounds and hard work.
The first time around, it was Dotson who kind of caught fire there at the end of the second half. This time around, do you kind of approach guarding him kind of like the same way you would guard like a Crab or somebody else like that?
That's an interesting question. We haven't decided how we're going to approach Dotson this time around, for the simple fact of what you said, that he sort of caught fire. And the way our lineup is now, I think I like the potential matchup of having Eric on him maybe. So it wouldn't be like there would be anything different. I'm still in the process of deciding what the starting lineup's going to be. This time of year and with our record, we have a lot of I can use this as an opportunity to try out a lot of different things. So I haven't really decided. But if we went with the lineup we went with Cal, and it'd be interesting to see Eric on him, both from Houston.
Coach, forgive me for to talk about this, but when you're kind of having a down, disappointing season, does it add extra weight to a rivalry game, kind of make it stand out a little bit more on the schedule to you guys?
No. I think, I would say that if we weren't playing with the same enthusiasm that we've been playing with, I think our guys take every single game as seriously as any other game. Now, the rivalry games are a little bit more serious, so I guess my answer to your question of the other games are just as serious, and this one's a little more serious. Now, if I thought this team was demoralized and our effort wasn't there, I would maybe answer that question differently. But these guys are still pounding away, trying to get better, win games, and prepare for the conference tournament.
You mentioned the lineup. Was it hard bringing him on off the bench for the first time in 60-some games?
Yeah, it was different, because we really had been relying on him to get us going, but the last few games he just didn't have the same spark. So I wanted to see if I could sort of give him an artificial jolt by having him come off the bench. And it was hard. It was hard. It was a decision that I didn't make lightly. I mean, we have, and I in particular have tried a lot of different things to get us going, and I don't think it's a lineup issue. It's not like, because with our lineups, everybody ends up playing with everybody anyway. It is really the down toward the end of the game and making the plays that help you win the game.
Do you think a message was received?
Well, I wasn't. I really wasn't trying to send a message per se. I was trying to help him get out of the little bit of funk that he's been in. So I don't know. If I went by the stat sheet, I would say, it was sort of a game like he's been having. But I certainly don't want that to be like I was sending them a message. I don't need to send messages. I just tell these guys when they're playing well, when they're playing poorly, what they need to do. I can just tell them the message rather than trying to, non-verbally imply it.
Greg, after the game, Roberto said that in that last second situation, he wants the ball in his hands, which is a little different than what he said earlier in the season in a similar situation where he said they didn't mind being a decoy. Do you like seeing that kind of like attitude?
Yeah. I think most players, and sometimes a little egotistically, want the ball in their hands at the end of the game there. I mean, when you're growing up, you practice those 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 shots. But, when you're the marquee player and a guy is standing in front of you, it's hard for you to get the ball when you're that guy unless you're really good at getting open with 4 seconds left. So we wanted, we needed a guy who could get the ball inbounds and dribble it up and get the shot off. And Ahmad is best suited for that in that situation.
Were you involved in any recruiting of E.J. Singler when you first got there?
Just briefly. He was, so I got hired in June or spring. So April. So I went to see him during the April recruiting, and that's late for guys. They're usually getting ready to decide. We tried to get in there, especially since he had, a dad who played here. But they had enough of a head start that we really didn't get much of a chance to get involved there. I tried to recruit E.J. Singler, Brad Tinsley, the other kid who went to Oregon when I got hired, the shooter who just Garrett Sim. He had committed to Cal, and when he decommitted, we tried to get him. And then there was one other kid who ended up going to Rice or SMU. You remember him? His name? We tried. They were all Oregon kids that we thought, okay, let's try and do it. But as you guys know, and I don't want to rehash it, but, this place was hard to get people to come to, especially folks who were here in Oregon who had seen, how tough it had gotten.
What do you like about Singler's game?
Yeah, I like everything about his basketball game, but his leadership capabilities, his toughness, the intangible stuff is the best stuff. I mean, now he's gotten good enough where he can shoot off the dribble. He can just jump up over guys who are smaller than him and make shots. He can get to the basket. He's just a tough kid. The overused term nowadays is glue guy. I hate that term because everybody uses it as sort of a catch-all, but he's just a very good basketball player. I wouldn't just call him a glue guy. I would, he could be some team's feature guy.
Is he the kind of guy that really good teams need to have?
You absolutely need a guy like that, an upperclassman who has the credibility to get everybody else to work hard, who has the skills to be one of your best players, if not your best player, and the guts to do all of the tough things like diving on the floor and playing when you're hurt and, kicking somebody in the pants when they need it.
Speaking of recruiting, a lot of fans are taking a little look to next year, wondering about the new guys you got coming in. Have you been able to track them, what they're doing?
Sure. Oh, yeah. We pay very close attention to what they're doing. Shea Njai, who is at Army Navy, his team's ranked number 1 in Southern California, in San Diego. He's averaging, I'm not sure, you can look it up, but I think it's like he's averaging a double-double, like 15 and 12 or, 14 and 10, something like that. And his team has a chance to go pretty far in the California State playoffs, which is always amazing to me because that state's so big and so long that, that if you're good enough to get to like the Sweet 16 of that's pretty good. Hollis Cook is playing for St. Anthony's. They're currently ranked 7th or 8th, easily in the top 10 of schools of the teams that get ranked by USA Today. He can play either the point guard or the off guard. He's making more threes this year than he's made. He's a good ball handler, great defender. He's kind of that guy who you would have come to your team and be sort of groom him to be a leader, groom him to be that glue guy, that word I hate, but to have the work ethic, the credibility, and the moxie to be a guy to run your team in the future.
Do you see him coming in and playing point?
I do. I see them both coming in and competing for their positions. Obviously, Shea would be a center, and I think that Hollis has a better chance at the point than he does. We have a lot of sort of wing guards, and Ahmad and Roberto will both be seniors, so Charlie will be the only point guard. So I think there will be some opportunity there for him.
You talk about the growth of your team, and like you were talking about, like how in the past few years, trying to come back from like 20 down, now you're kind of closer. Have you seen your team improve in those types of situations that you're trying to focus on?
Yeah, well, so I've seen us improve to where we're now a team that is in every Pac-12 game you play. That was, that's one of those short-term goals that you shoot for when your big goal is to make the NCAA tournament and win a Pac-12 championship. You need to be first and foremost in every one of those games. So we've made that kind of growth. Where we have sort of stalled out is what you do at the end of those games. Now that your expertise is now not going from a 20-point deficit to cutting it to 6 and then end up losing by 10 or 12. You're in the game the whole time, and at the end you have to make those winning plays that good teams make. That's what we're working on now. I mean, we're spending a lot of time trying to recreate those situations, talk about what we do in those situations, and then try and play them out in practice. Very hard to replicate, but it's what we're focused on.
Have you seen that get better throughout the season?
Yeah, well, it has, even though the results don't show it. I mean, I really like the way we managed the Cal game right there, and if I could have gotten that timeout sooner, and I don't blame the refs, but they're all facing that way and at the other end of the court, and I'm yelling timeout. And the difference between 6.5 seconds and 4.5 seconds is big in that situation, and you can get a better shot off. But that's the position you want to be in every game. Same with the Washington State game. The same with the Stanford game. You want your games to be at the end. You have a chance to win them. I mean, if you're going into that last 4 minutes, that last 3.5 minutes after the 4-minute timeout, you want to have an opportunity to say, okay, fellas, we can win this game if we do these 3 things. And I feel like we've made some progress there. Our record doesn't show it, but it feels like it.
Before that Cal game, you had all the second half issues, and it looked like maybe conditioning might have been a factor. Do you see that at all?
No. I don't see conditioning as a factor. I mean, wait, what made you say that? Just
Well, Stanford, granted those 2 looked like maybe the team was getting tired at the end.
Yeah, it's possible. I don't feel that way. I mean, at the end of the games, it's not like we're, taking contested shots and they're hitting the front of the rim and they don't have a chance of going in. That's not our problem. That's how I usually gauge if you're just so exhausted you can't even get your shots up, and then you're missing foul shots because you're just absolutely exhausted. I don't think that's been our case. Our case has been emotionally and psychologically, and which leads to actual literally making those plays. You have to feel like you can make those plays before you make it's kind of like learning that in the non-conference you're supposed to win those games, so you win some that you might not have won if you didn't think you were going to win those games. Now you have to be able to do that in your conference.
Craig, he's got one of those motor, the cliche, nonstop, and it seems like whenever he grabs a rebound, he's always creating something after that rebound. In terms of that match, how do you neutralize it? Is it just a matter of matching his intensity, or?
Yeah, I thought we did a good job against him when we played him last time, because we have a couple of guys who have pretty good motors, Eric Moreland being one of them, and I think that guys like that, they just create situations for themselves because people aren't running things for you. You're not running plays for guys. And what you find when guys aren't getting plays run for them and they want to be involved offensively, they go out and make something happen, whether it's a tip back or an actual offensive rebound or the defensive rebound where they take it up the court, or a steal where they can get an easy bucket. Good players do that.
Are you using last year's game, the win in Matthew Knight Arena, as motivation for this year? Are you guys talking about that at all in the locker room?
No, we're just, you use that to point out that you have won there and you're capable of winning there, but the teams are completely different now, so we wouldn't spend a whole lot of time breaking down that tape. We'll look at their most recent games and then our last game against them, which will be a little bit different because their lineup's different, our lineup's different because we played so long ago.
What are some of the situations from that first meeting against them that you're picking out in practice and working on from that second half of the season?
See, I want to answer that for you, Stephen, but then I don't want them to know what I'm working on. But I can sort of, that game, the game was fine, and then all of a sudden Damian Dotson starts making shots that if you're like, okay, that's a freshman, we'll let him, if he's taking those shots, it's better than if Singler's taking them or Kazemi or Emery, and then he's making them, and we're not making them on the other end. But I like the way we're approaching the game plan. We just want to play. When you're on the road, you want to keep the game close so that at the end you have a chance to win. Our last away games have been like that. Washington was a little bit different at the end. They pulled away from us a little earlier, and it seemed like it was more of a pull away because we were fouling, trying to get back in it. But, if we stick with our game plan and play solid D in those last 4 minutes, hopefully we'll have a chance to pull something off.
Can you talk about Roberto's development as a player this year, where he's improved?
Yeah. Well, he's listening more first and foremost. Good players like Roberto, who can be great at times and have been great in high school and on the AAU circuit, they tend to give themselves over last because they've been successful doing things their way. And I thought this season he's done a very good job of giving himself over to our way of doing things, and I think that's helped him, especially on the defensive end. I mean, there's still games when I go offense, defense with him because, he can be very aggressive and people tend to call fouls on him when he's playing defense. But his defense has gotten better, and it's interesting. I think his defense is better based on the guy, the skill of the guy he's guarding. Not the better the guy is, the better his defense is. And we're trying to get him to be that way all the time. And then just from an understanding when to shoot, when not to shoot, he's much better. You know, you guys have heard me talk about Roberto being the reluctant superstar. I mean, you know, it's been painful trying to get him to take more shots because he doesn't want to be viewed as a guy who takes all the shots. I think he's done a very good job at doing that this year. Now, his last couple of games, you know, our whole guard play has been tough the last couple of games, you know. So it's not just Roberto and it's not just Ahmad. It's everybody who's playing the position that we're not having the kind of success we need to have to win these games. But having said that, I think he's made huge strides this season, and I'm excited for him, happy for him.
Can he develop into the kind of lockdown defender?
Oh, yeah. I mean, a kid who's that big and strong and has that kind of basketball IQ, he absolutely can. It's just guys who can score the way he can. Defense is sort of it's an afterthought. I mean, you know, it's like it's like people who have a high rate of metabolism. They eat ice cream for dessert every day and don't think anything about it. That's the kind of analogy I would use with him. It's not important enough to even worry about because he can score so well.
Is he playing at an all-league level this year?
You know, that's hard to say because when you look at our record, you know, the way I've seen this league vote, you have to really be going gangbusters to get to be an all-league when your team's at the bottom or near the bottom. He certainly has the potential to be an all-league player. I mean, he's got the talent. I think we just need to win a few more games. You know, you win some of those close games and you have more of a 500 record in the league. I think absolutely.
Are teams focusing more defensive attention on him? Montgomery said that he was pretty pleased with how they handled it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and that's the difference between being a good player and a great player. The great players know that the attention's going to be on them, and they have an impact on the game anyway. Maybe not scoring, but certainly defense, rebound, setting other guys up.
When you talk about Roberto, wanting him to be more assertive in scoring, the apprehensive superstar or whatever, is that to create more or to have him just shoot more wins?
No, it just score when you have opportunities. You know, it at least in my opinion, people don't give scorers enough credit for working hard to score. They just think scorers are scorers. It's almost like people are jealous of guys who score so much because it's viewed as, oh, that's easy to do if you can score. But what people don't realize is you have to score on people, so it's hard to do. And when you have a guy like Roberto who has that capability, you want him to max out on that, optimize. You want him. It's like a trade. You want to exploit that arbitrage until there's no more arbitrage, and he won't do that. He's a very nice kid who wants everybody to be involved. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Is he, like you say, is he getting more where you want him to be?
He's getting more, but he's reluctant. I mean, if I'm doing my job, I'm making him do it. But it's one of those things where you're pushing the rock up the hill and you got gravity coming down on you, and so we're fighting this battle where I'm telling him we need you to do this for us, and he's willing to do it, but he wants to set everybody else up, and I'm like, we'll let you know when you need to do that.
I was going to ask about your freshmen now that they're almost sophomores, how you see their improvement in Langston Morris Walker. Is he all the way out of his punishment?
Is he all the way out of his punishment? I don't think you're ever all the way out of your punishment. It's like you have to in our situation you have to earn your way back in our good graces. But does that mean that he's going to get in the game? So I'll leave that at that. In spite of his punishment, I think at a certain point he might have been the freshman developing the most. But it's like the freshmen, they all have had their sort of ups and downs. And for a while there, Jamal was developing the most because of his defense. And then Olaf seemed to be developing the most of late because of his rebounding and his defense. And Victor, I tell you, when we came out of the gate and went to Europe and were playing early in practice, he was the guy who was developing the most. So they've all had their sort of peaks and valleys. All of them I feel comfortable putting in from a defensive standpoint now. You know, Olaf was the final piece on a defensive end. We always trusted him taking shots, and that was good, and I didn't trust him as much on defense. Now, all four of them I trust on defense. I think Langston and Olaf, I trust more of their offense, but we don't need their offense right now. This time next year, we're really going to need their offense. But I like their development. I like their spirit. I like their effect on this team, with, you know, minor discretions notwithstanding.
What do you tell those guys about playing that night with that floor and everything?
Nothing. You know, the floor is over emphasized because when you're down on the court, you can see it doesn't bother you. You know, it's just one of those things. To me, it looks different from a television standpoint. But when you're down there, and I've never played on it, but I'm standing there coaching and watching. We never had a backcourt call or, you know, something where somebody didn't know where the half court line was. So, and the design doesn't really bother. It doesn't bother me. It hadn't bothered our guys. So you know what? I tell them that they're lucky that we're not playing at Mac Court or you know, the old place. That place, when the floor started bouncing up and down, that was an experience. I mean, I'd never experienced anything like that. But the fans are passionate. The team's good. You know, the school is well-resourced. There's a great rivalry. So it's a good environment. I mean, you know, it's just the rivalry is such a good game to play in state. Is that it? All right. Thank you, guys.